Nintendo recently announced that Mario Kart 8 is getting DLC, bringing us 6 new characters, 8 new vehicles, and 16 new tracks split between 2 download packs. The first of which launches this November, while the second pack strikes during the month of the game's 1-year anniversary in May 2015. But even though not a ton is known about the new DLC, that's not going to stop us from sending everything we know through the old analysis machine to see what secrets and hidden details the screenshots might be hiding. And let's start things off by taking a look at the new tracks of Pack 1, which as mentioned will contain 8 new ones in total, 3 of which we see in action thanks to the screenshots released for it. First up, we have the most obvious one, and not just because it has the biggest picture, being the return of Wario's Gold Mine, first seen in Mario Kart Wii, which is the only confirmed retro track in both DLC packs that we know about for sure. Now this picture was taken just past the starting line and provides a glimpse of the first third of the track or so. And based on what we can see, the track design so far appears to be identical to the before, with you driving along a minecart track as you pass under a Wario's Gold Mine sign, before taking a steep downhill dip, then heading back up immediately after. You'll then curve to the left, as marked by the pair of identically placed arrows, before turning to the right into the tunnel here. But even though that all seems to be the same, there are some interesting things to point out here. For one, it seems as though the boost pad found during the dip in Mario Kart Wii might actually be missing this time around, as the portion of the track where it should be appears to be bare. Next, even though it's hard to tell just how upgraded the track's visuals will be based on this small image, there are some things we've already noticed. Such as the fact that, even though the track was already set at dusk, it's even more pronounced now with a far more colorful skyline. On top of that, if we look at the buildings built into the canyon walls, we can see they now have their lights turned on. In fact, even that distant tunnel appears as if it may be illuminated from the outside too this time. In addition, we can see some additional machinery has been built into the walls. In fact, the machine here obstructs our view of some of the track ahead, preventing us from determining if the quarter pipe originally found there is back or not. Although Mario Kart 7's Wii retro tracks did retain the quarter pipe feature, so we'd be surprised if it's not back here too. And of course, we can see that the towering green pipes are back as well, although it does seem that the steam that emits from them may not be, unless the effect is just far more subtle now. Finally, even the Wario's Gold Mine sign has been upgraded, with Wario striking a brand new pose, surrounded by even more gold coins and a new gold font. It really drives home the point that this man's greedy, and cleverly, you'll be able to collect some gold coins for yourself directly below. And on top of it all, literally, it looks like the sign's even been adorned with new yellow balls that appear to feature Wario's trademark purple W. Okay, that about covers it for Wario's Gold Mine, but make sure to stay tuned for an upcoming video feature where I'll explore what else we might do to switch up this track. Next up, we have a track based on F-Zero, as clearly indicated by the starting line sign. And based on the saucer-like buildings in the background, we can tell this track will take place in that series' famous locale, Mute City. And the course appears to be an entirely new design too, as it doesn't match the track layout of any existing F-Zero game. But unfortunately, there's not too much we can actually glean from this image, besides the fact that the track curves to the right immediately after the starting line and begins to ascend. Now it's impossible to tell for sure, but it almost looks as if the track may be twisting here, which would make sense given that's something F-Zero is famous for. And we'd be very surprised if this track doesn't take full advantage of Mario Kart 8's anti-gravity mechanic. Now something else F-Zero is famous for is of course its raw speed, which was only enhanced by the many boost pads found throughout many of the courses. And since Mario Kart 8 also features boost pads, we can probably expect to find at least a few of them, if not a lot of them, on this track too. In fact, we can see what just might be a boost pad here, and another one up ahead. And if we look at the track just before it, we can see that although the green wall on the right appears to curve around the corner, the wall on the left breaks away, showing that you can continue straight ahead before turning here. So is this actually a split path here, or is there something else going on in the wide section just right of it? Regardless, it looks as if this course will be visually impressive. I mean, just check out that giant moon, or is that a dome in the background? Next up is the final course of Pack 1 that was shown off, which takes place in an open-air stadium, complete with a giant tree visible through the gap below the roof. But this isn't just any stadium, but one based on the NES classic Excitebike. I mean, where else have you seen hills like that? Hell, they even have the classic 4-lane markings. In fact, though it's impossible to make out the individual letters, it seems as if the words Excitebike may even be written on the stadium itself. And in case there were still any doubt, you could even see a statue of an 8-bit Excitebike racer doing a wheelie here. See? Now one of the trademark elements of Excitebike is proper navigation of these hills. And even though Mario Kart 8 lacks the aerial forward and back tilt controls of that game, we wouldn't be surprised if proper entry speed isn't still a factor when navigating them here. At the least, it looks as if you'd be able to perform 2 potential stunts on this hill, one halfway up, then another at the top. Now, unlike in the original Excitebike, it appears there is another option for dealing with that hill here, and that's by avoiding it entirely by cutting across the grass that borders it. Although you probably need a mushroom or a star to make this worthwhile. Now just beyond that hill, it looks like there may be a row of item boxes before the course makes a sharp 90-degree right turn. And from there, it's anyone's guess as to what happens next, so here's ours. So far, based on the very small portion of the track we can see, it appears to be sticking closely to the stadium's perimeter. So it's possible this course is really just a simple square, consisting entirely of straightaways between the 4 corners. It would make sense given that the original Excitebike wasn't really big on turns. In fact, it didn't have any at all. We also can't help but wonder if you might be able to cut across some of those corners by boosting off some of those hills. It could make for some particularly risky but rewarding shortcuts. Now beyond the hills, Excitebike is also well known for having other course features that we wouldn't be surprised to see appear here too. Like the bumps in the road that you had to wheelie over before could be perfect for quick stunts here, whereas the pools of mud that you had to avoid in the original game could reappear, perhaps in the form of oil slicks, like in the Mario Kart GBA course. Alright, and that covers it for all the tracks shown off in Pack 1. So let's move on to Pack 2, of which we only see 2 new tracks in action. And the most notable of the 2 is the Animal Crossing course. But it's not just based on any Animal Crossing, but New Leaf, as its logo can be found on the starting line sign surrounded by berries. And the track appears to wind itself through a typical Animal Crossing village, with recognizable landmarks along the way, including a now fully grown town tree, a typical looking house, town hall, and the Able Sisters across the street. Oh, and since this is based on New Leaf, that means the second floor of the Able Sisters is likely the hairdresser Shampoodle. In fact, if we zoom in, you can even see the staircase leading up to it, just like in the original game. And of course, a bunch of villagers can be found spectating from the sidelines too, including Bob the Cat, Caroline the Squirrel, Pecan the Squirrel, Joey the Duck just behind her, and Mayeli the Duck. As for the track itself, well, once again we don't have much to go off of. But when has that ever stopped us before? So right off the starting line, we can see you'll have the chance to snake an iron box as you cross an arch bridge. And it looks like the arch might be just arched enough to allow you to perform a stunt. The track then bends to the right before it gets lost behind a giant tree. And that's all we know for sure, but let's get back to that bridge for a moment. Now, as in the Animal Crossing games, we're guessing it's there so you can cross over a river. In fact, if we look to the left, we can see what might just be a waterfall. And since rivers always have to flow to some other body of water, that means there will almost definitely have to be at least one more bridge for you to cross. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff, I know. But given that the rivers in Animal Crossing always flowed out past the beach and into the ocean, we think there's a good chance that this racetrack may swing by the beach too. Now something else Animal Crossing is famous for is its use of a real-time clock, meaning if you play at nighttime in real life, it'll be nighttime in the game as well. So could this be the case here too? We can imagine a sunset might look particularly nice in this level, especially with the mountains in the distance. And perhaps special events might even occur depending on what day you play on, such as KK Slider putting on a Saturday night show. After all, Smash Bros. Has already done the same basic idea with their Animal Crossing stage, so why can't Mario Kart? Alright, and that covers it for the Animal Crossing track, but there's still one more left. This mysterious forest one, which features a track that begins on a short straightaway before curving to the right into another straightaway that appears to descend. Now, whereas every other track we've seen so far is either based on an existing franchise or is a remake of a retro track, this one is the odd one out. It doesn't appear to have any ties at all. In fact, if we take a look at the starting line here, we can see it says Mario Kart, instead of featuring another game's logo as with the F-Zero and Animal Crossing tracks. Which means the track isn't based on any existing game series. In fact, that Mario Kart logo is actually the modern version, which means this track has to either be a brand new track or a remake of a track from a Mario Kart game that uses that same logo, meaning either Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart Wii, or Mario Kart 7, since every retro track from a game earlier than those uses the classic Mario Kart logo instead. But since this track's layout doesn't appear to match any previous Mario Kart track, it seems that this is in fact the first all-new DLC track that's not based on anything at all. Okay, and that covers it for all the tracks we've seen, but thanks to Nintendo's press release we do know about one more. A track based on The Legend of Zelda. Unfortunately, that's all we know about it. Or is it? To answer that, let's take a look at both of the Animal Crossing characters coming to Mario Kart 8. Isabelle, of course, made her debut in Animal Crossing New Leaf, the same game on which the Animal Crossing track is based. Now, the Villager, on the other hand, has appeared in all the Animal Crossing games. However, this one in particular is also based on New Leaf, as demonstrated by a shirt which says NTDO 1889, which first appeared in that game. And in case you're curious, NTDO is short for Nintendo, and 1889 is the year the company was founded. Yeah, some little trivia there for you. Anyway, so given that both Animal Crossing characters are from the same game their track is based on, we have a hunch that the same thing applies to Link too. Which means that, since this is the same Link from Skyward Sword, as clearly indicated by the DLC artwork that is literally the same art used for the Skyward Sword game, that the track will also probably be based on Skyward Sword. So perhaps you'll race around Skyloft using hang gliders to fly island to island. Alright, and that covers it for all 6 of the new tracks that we know about for sure, with still at least 10 of them left as a complete mystery. Now we do know that the tracks will be divided into 4 cups, being represented by Yoshi's Egg, Animal Crossing's Leaf, Zelda's Triforce, and Super Mario 3D World's Super Bell. Now historically, the cup icons haven't actually represented any of the tracks within that Grand Prix, but it seems that the DLC packs may be changing this, with the Animal Crossing track likely being found in the Animal Crossing Leaf Cup, and the Zelda track in the Triforce one. Which also means that the unwritten rule that the lower row of cups are always retro tracks is no longer being followed, given that the Triforce Cup can also be found on that row, and its Zelda track has to be a new one. And assuming this is the case, this also suggests that, for the first time ever, new tracks and retro tracks will be mixed together within the same Grand Prix. The only way we could see this not being the case is that their current placeholder image aren't in the final locations, which seems unlikely. So given that 2 of the DLC cup icons seem to represent tracks found within, could the same thing apply for the other 2 DLC cups as well? If so, that very well could could mean that Super Mario 3D World inspired track might appear in the one marked by a Super Bell, given that the Super Bell is from that same game. But what about Yoshi's Egg? After all, there is already a Yoshi track in Mario Kart 8, being Yoshi's Valley. But that one's a retro track, which leaves the door wide open for a brand new Yoshi track, perhaps using the new Yoshi's Island or upcoming Yoshi's Woolly World as possible inspirations. So assuming that's the case, we may actually have some idea of what 8 or half of the total DLC tracks might be. And that covers it for everything we know about the upcoming DLC packs. But what about even more DLC in the future? After all, before this DLC was announced, people who had analyzed Mario Kart 8's source code apparently found 4 unused cup icons buried within the game. Now, one of those icons is actually an early version of the Yoshi Egg in Pack 1, but what about the other 3 icons, being marked by a Shine Sprite, a Boo, and a Blue Shell? Realistically, they were probably just used as placeholder graphics until the actual DLC was decided on. But maybe they offer a hint of even more tracks to come. Like, say, another Mario Sunshine inspired one, for instance. And what about characters? After all, doesn't it seem a little bit weird that we have 2 tracks underrepresented by characters, being Excitebike and F-Zero? Especially because F-Zero even got vehicle representation in the form of the Blue Falcon. We can't exactly say we'd be shocked that Captain Falcon turns up at some point to complete the trifecta. And with that, we covered everything we could dig up on the 2 DLC packs coming to Mario Kart 8. As always, let us know if we missed anything by posting in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GamingExplained.com for more on the Mario Kart 8 DLC and other things gaming too.